right, good afternoon. This is Steve with Real Progressives. OBS is the strange bird. It's a really great tool. It allows you to do an awful lot of things. Unfortunately, one of the things it does is that when you're trying to set up your program, you not only have to have your program open, but if you try to include a window or you try to include some sort of a video or anything like that, when you switch screens, unfortunately, OBS says, he must be trying to go live, and it just does it for you. And so there I am staring at my computer, getting everything configured, and lo and behold, it's a false start. So folks, you have my apologies. I'm doing my best. All right. So today we're going to talk about Kamala and Joe Biden very specifically. And I want to make sure that what we do is a couple things. Obviously, these debates are canned theater. They're not like really substantive, but every once in a while someone uncorks something that is, it's really powerful and it gets everybody excited, right? Kamala Harris and Joe Biden had a particularly tense exchange, which dropped Joe Biden by over 10 points, and he continues to fall after his completely failed response to the debate. However, Kamala has been preparing for this moment for a very, very, very long time, okay? And to her credit, she seized the moment and she hit it out of the park for that moment. That in and of itself, what happened in that exchange, though, does not amount to a policy. In fact, to listen to that moment in its vacuum moment, just in isolation, you might be tempted to get the idea that Kamala Harris has got a great record on civil rights. You might be tempted to believe that Kamala Harris is a real champion or a warrior for such things. And it's in these debates where people maybe haven't been paying attention to their careers, maybe don't really care enough to do the digging. And when I say digging, I'm not talking about looking for a stain on a blue dress kind of digging. I'm talking about legitimate things, civil forfeiture, chasing down homeless moms, celebrating keeping innocent people in jail and on death row and thus the death penalty. Things like that, One might say Bill Clinton did the same thing with his tough on crime back in the day, where he was trying to show off for the conservative side as he was trying to bring Democrats to the right to take over the Republican space, which is the third way. Well, Kamala Harris, she had some blemishes there too. But before I go too much further, let's let you hear them do their thing. From this picture from the other night, poor Bernie stuck in the middle there. But I want to show it to you. Let's listen to this exchange. And I want to be really fair. Kamala Harris pops Joe Biden in the mouth really hard. And it's a great score if you're judging candidates simply by sound bites. We're going to do better than that, though, aren't we? Let's hear it.
So on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. Mm-hmm. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, It cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true. Number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, the busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
I have supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up.
All right. So this is great because Kamala really took it hard to him. I mean, you think about it, Joe Biden, let me cut through the mustard here. Joe Biden just basically said, hey, I'm a states' rights guy. Well, you don't get much more right wing and much more civil war. I mean, we're talking about blowing way back in the day. We're talking about Ron Paul. We're talking about the real Koch brother mindset here, right? And Kamala kept trying to give him an olive branch to get out of the hole he was digging and saying, do you admit that you were wrong for that? And Biden doubled down and said, no, I wasn't wrong for that. Of course I support busing. I just opposed the federal government stepping in. I don't know, 14th Amendment kind of thing, where you make sure equality goes across the board. I mean, that's the whole point. The federal government, the balance between the states and the Fed really comes down to equality. And Joe Biden flat out gives her every bit of ammo. And you could almost see the shock in her face that even when giving him the rope to get out of the hole, instead of getting out of the hole, he put it around his own neck. Well, this is great. It's great theater. And Kamala looked like she was meaning it. She was shaking, like this was really coming from the heart. And you know what? I don't want to minimize what she may have gone through as a child or what she's gone through as a African-American woman moving up through power circles, etc. I don't for a minute have any clue how hard that must be regardless. I'm going to be real clear about that because what I'm about to say next isn't going to be as flattering Because what you've got here is a situation where progressives are seeking people that have truly progressive values, truly understand the difference between right and wrong, and truly take hard stances that represent the people and understand why people are in the situations they're in, and has some compassion, has some understanding. And you know what? That's not who Kamala Harris has been throughout her career. Kamala Harris was once a prosecutor, and I want to talk about this. Basically, she comes out and says, Joe Biden appeared insufficiently prepared for California Senator Kamala Harris's sharp attack during Thursday's debate on his anti-busing record and his warm memories of working with racist senators. He rambled and tottered and, worst of all, capped it off with a delicious self-own that could fit on a bumper sticker. My time is up. I'm sorry. Harris, unsurprisingly, was roundly declared the biggest winner of both nights, but her victory, indeed, her entire posture as a champion of racial justice, is not safe from irony. Before she was elected to the Senate, Harris was California's Attorney General from 2011 to 2017. And before that, she was San Francisco's District Attorney from 2004 to 2011. Harris's career appears to follow a rather worn arc. Young, ambitious lawyer with liberal ideas, opposition to the death penalty and punitive sentencing, encounters situations that lead her to compromise or abandon said ideals in exchange for political advancement. In other words, she was willing to let people die. She was willing to jail people. She was willing to destroy the lives of anyone, provided it allowed her to climb up the power ladder. And she did it with a laugh many times. So Harris was a rather zealous participant in California's particularly harsh version of being tough on crime. An attorney general obviously cannot write the laws like horrible three-strike statute. She was charged with enforcement. That said, she did have significant discretion about which laws to defend and what kinds of cases her subordinates should pursue. Harris herself showed unfortunate enthusiasm for fighting against wrongful conviction suits. The most infamous being the case of Kevin Cooper, a black man who was almost certainly framed by the San Bernardino Police Department for a quadruple homicide and sentenced to death. Harris not only succeeded in stymieing Cooper's appeal for clemency, she also effectively defended the death penalty by leaving Cooper on death row. He was known to be innocent. She let it go, and she even left him on death row. Now, I want you to be clear when I say this. I want you to understand. This right here is exactly why watching these debates and listening for sound bites and who smacks who the hardest in there is precisely exactly the wrong way to pick a presidential candidate. Kamala is a centrist. She is an establishment tool. And she is power hungry, and she has no problem leaving innocent people in jail on death row if it facilitates her rise up the food chain. I don't in any way, shape, or form deny her existence or her experiences throughout her childhood or her entire life. But I want to make perfectly clear, Kamala Harris does not have the high ground on this issue. Kamala Harris took a softball and hit it out of the park. She's very competent in that sense. But as a progressive, as someone fighting for the people, is that what you want in a candidate? I think not. I think not. I think it's important to understand that the issues that she brought up in that exchange are very valid and very important. And she's absolutely correct that it should not be some intellectual collegiate debate about, civil rights, states' rights, whatever. They need to take swift action to protect minority communities from overzealous prosecutors, overzealous police departments, etc., who shoot first, ask questions later. But Kamala Harris, Your track record says you're part of the problem. And as a progressive, I won't let you forget it. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great day.